543,982. I'm going to run it to a few different places. So first, let's take a look at thousands. Now, as you read this number, we would read it as 543,000. Okay, so we have 543,000. So we look one spot to the right and we see a 9. Okay, so the 9 tells us to round up to 544,000. Okay. All right, looking at our next one here, now we're worrying about 10,000. Okay, so now if we look at our number, we see that we have 54 10,000. So we look one spot to the right, this time we see a 3. Which means we're going to keep it as 54 10,000. Finally, we go to our 100,000 place. So we look at a 5 right here. So we have 500,000. So again, look one spot to the right, and you see that we have a 4 in the 10,000 place. So that 4 tells us to keep the 5 as 500,000. Okay. Now, moving on to our next one here, we're going to be rounding some different numbers to some different places. So now the first 3 here are going to be focusing on 100. So we're going to really focus on just on the 100. So we have 2,841 rounded to the nearest 100. Well, we have 2,800. 4 in the 10th place tells us to keep it as 2,800. Okay. Our next one, we have 300. 32,851 rounded to the nearest 100. Okay, well this time we have 328 hundreds. So one, and we look back over at that 10th place and see a 5. That 5 tells us to go up. So now we're going to have 329 hundreds. And our next number, we have 1,328 hundreds. A 9 in the 10th place tells us to round up to 1,329 hundreds. Okay. Next, we're going to take a look at some thousands. So, our first number here, we're starting off with 6,000. There's a 2 in the hundreds place, which tells us to round down to 6,000. Letter E, we have 36,000. Okay, that 5 in the hundreds place tells us to round it up to 37,000. Okay. Same thing with our next one. We have 100,000. Okay. 6 in the hundreds place tells us we need to round it up to 101,000. Okay. And next, let's take a look at one more spot over. We're going to do 10,000. So letter G, we have 4 10,000. The 0 next to it tells us to keep it as 4 10,000. Next we have 5 10,000. Well, the 4 in the thousands place tells us to keep it as 5 10,000. And letter I, we have 99 10,000. Okay. We have a 7 next to it, which tells us that we need to round our 99 10,000s up to 100 10,000. So we write 100 10,000. Which would be 1 million. Okay. Our last 3, we're going to look at the 100,000. So we have 3 10,000s for 300,000. 6 in the 10,000s place tells us to go up to 400,000. Next we have 400,000. but our three 10,000 tells us to go down to 400,000. Okay. Finally, letter L, we have 800,000. So the 5 in the 10,000th place tells us to go up to 900,000. Okay, moving on to our next page. We have number 3. So Empire Elementary School needs to purchase water bottles for field day. There are 2,142 students. Principal Vader rounded to the nearest 100 to estimate how many water bottles to order. Will there be enough water bottles for everyone? Explain. So we have 2,142 students and we need to round to the nearest 100. Then we need to find out how many water bottles to order. So if we have 2,142 students, okay, now we have 21 hundreds. Okay. The 4 in the 10th place tells us to leave it as 2,100. Okay. Now our question is, will there be enough water bottles for everyone? Well, if Principal Vader orders 2,100 water bottles, there's not going to be enough because we have more students than that. Okay, so that's the problem when we round down like this. Okay, if we ordered 2,100, it would not be enough. And so there would not be enough. Water bottles because 2,142 rounds to 2,100. Okay. There will be 42 students without water. Okay. Alright, so number 4. Opening day at the New York Fair in 2012 had an attendance of 46,753. Decide which place value to round 46,753 to if you were writing a newspaper article. Round the number and explain why it is an appropriate unit to round to. So we could really round it to a few different places. We want to think about what will make the most sense. Now, one thing that we could do is take our 46,753 and round it to the largest place. In this case, the 10,000. So we have 4 10,000s. Okay? So our 6,000, or 6 in the thousandth place tells us to round that 4 up to 5 10,000. Now for a newspaper, 50,000 would be a nice number to use because there's lots of zeros. So I would round 46,753 to the 10,000th place. We get 50,000. Okay. It is the largest place and is easiest to read. Okay, moving on here to our last one, number 5. We have a jet airplane holds about 65,000 gallons of gas. It uses 7,460 gallons in flying between New York City and Los Angeles. Round each number to the largest place value. Then find about how many trips the plane can take between the cities before running out of fuel. Okay, so we have 65,000. We're going to round it to the nearest place. So for this number, the largest place we have is the 10,000th place. So we're going to round to the nearest 10,000. Well, the 5 in the thousandth place tells us to round that 6 up to 7. Okay. Now we're going to take our gas for one trip of 7,460. Now in this case, our largest place is the thousandth place. And the 4 in the hundredth place tells us to leave that 7 as a 7. Okay. So that's what they would be rounded. Okay. So now we need to think, if it takes them about 7,000 gallons of gas, how many times could they make trips on about 70,000 gallons in the tank? Okay. Well, we could see from our work with place value that that 7 has moved over one place. So 70,000 is 10 times as much as 7,000. So that means they can make 10 trips. Okay. So a plane can take 10 trips. Because 70,000 is 10 times as much as 7,000. So this is some good review from